away from my screen and give a brief introduction. I can't get my screen to change, so give me a sec. All right. Well, welcome. For those of you that just listened to me frustrated for the last couple of minutes, my name is Joan Rubin. I am the Executive Director for the System Design and Management program here at MIT. We run these information sessions as a chance to have a little bit more background information than you can find on a website, a chance to chat with students, a chance to share some of what we feel is important about the program, because we know that your process of deciding on graduate school and searching for the right fit is often a journey rather than just a single stop. And so our hope is today that you're going to get enough information to understand if this is something that may be the right fit for you in your career and in your journey. So as a kickoff, I think it's important to understand what is system design and management. It's a strange name. It isn't necessarily the first thing you'd pull up on a search, but we are what is termed a professional master's degree, and I'm going to give a little bit of a caveat to that in a second, jointly offered between the School of Engineering here at MIT and the Sloan School of Management. By jointly offered, it means that half of your coursework you will take through engineering in the engineering school, and half of your coursework you'll take through the Sloan School of Management. It is not an engineering management degree where all of your learnings are specifically focused on technical management topics. You have the full scope of what's available at the Sloan School to be able to really fill out and enhance your background as a leader, as a manager. It is a Master of Science degree. So although within the scope of MIT, it's referred to as a professional master's degrees, oftentimes those do not require thesis work. In the case of SDMs, a full Master of Science degree means that you are expected to do research and you are expected to actually complete a thesis as part of your process. So the program started about 28 years ago now, and we were done jointly between MIT and industry. And industry had come to MIT to basically say, we're running into challenges where the scope and the scale of our problems are big, and we need people that can think from a complex systems perspective and start to consider and understand how different facets of the problems interplay. It isn't industry 100 years ago where you had a technology and you could build it in a silo and you could release it to market, but you have to be thinking about those connections and how those connections fit. And so the goal of the program when we started was to help create systems level expertise with the students, help our students to become effective leaders of large scale complex organizations. And back 25 or 27 years ago when we started, that oftentimes was aircraft industries, automotive, heavy industry. But as technology has shifted and changed, we see this idea of large scale complex challenges affecting every aspect in every industry that's out there. And so it's healthcare, it's finance, it is high tech. The idea of complexity is out there no matter where you touch. We're looking at creating and educating future leaders that are going to lead large-scale engineering or technical organizations. And then when we were founded, one of our charters was to create a career-compatible educational pathway. It's not fully a distance degree. There is a required time on campus, but there is flexibility in the way the degree is structured to allow you to be able to continue and manage your career pathway while you pursue the degree. And so we are tagged and viewed as MIT's first degree granting distance education program. I'm going to have one of our graduates that just graduated a couple months ago talk a little bit about SDM from her perspective. I think it oftentimes is a better way than listening to me talk. So give me a second, we'll get this playing.
As an engineer, I'm trained to be a problem solver, and now I've learned a new way to solve problems, and it's pretty fun. It's almost like a puzzle with strings, because if you move the piece that's over in this corner, it may pull the piece that's in this other corner, and you had no idea they were connected. And that's the beauty of systems, to understand these relationships between all these pieces. My name is Marcel Durenberger, and I'm a third-year SDM, which is System Design and Management master's student at MIT. System design management is a blend of engineering and management. So we split our credits between the engineering school and the management school. It is a bit more engineering heavy, and we do have business represented as well, but we also have doctors that come in. We have geologists that come in, people from energy related industries. We have consumer products, we have automotive, we have aerospace, we have military. We really have a bit of everything. And I think that also is a huge part of SDM, to have that diversity of thought, and you learn how to adapt to your different groups, adapt to different cultures. You have people in different time zones, so you're learning how to navigate that as well. And you can do it in so many different ways. There are people who come in as sponsored from their companies and do it very quickly. There are people who are sponsored who do it in a pretty standard 1.5 to 2 years. Yeah. There's a group of people who do remote with plazas to get on campus on certain times. And then you have the part-time folks. I was able to blend starting part-time and then going full-time. There are a few of us who do that. So core is the first year for every system design and management student. So in the fall, you're all learning a common language, the core foundation of what systems thinking is. System architecture usually leads the front, and then you have system engineering, and then you have project management. And you're applying these to pretty simple problems. So first in the fall, you're like, okay, we're getting this new language, we're seeing how it applies, but these problems don't seem particularly complex. And that's the point, because you need to build on it. So what happens is you have a winter session, 1 week in January, where everyone comes on campus. And you are all in a room, you're doing workshops, and you actually get pitched projects from 40 plus sponsors. And these projects have all been filtered by the program to really help you practice all the knowledge you now have. And then you go into the spring semester and you apply it to a much more complex project. So that complexity builds across the core class, and then it culminates in how do you actually take this method of systems thinking and apply it in your workplace, or however you need to use them. Being a teaching assistant for the core class, it's actually really fun to see other people wrestle with the questions that you wrestled with, and then slowly have the puzzle pieces like click in their heads. The project work brings you closer, the whirlwind nature of the program brings you closer, and then all of a sudden you have this really special community. I think we come here because we want to do better. We want to elevate something that you think can improve. And this is an opportunity to learn the tools and meet the people that have a similar curiosity and drive to make a difference.
Yeah, we'll move beyond that. So I think building on some of the things that Marcel talked about is it's useful to go back and reflect on our mission. And the SDM mission, and this was defined back when the program was started, and I think it's still just as relevant today as it was 28 years ago, is to educate future technical leaders in architecting, engineering, and designing complex products and systems, preparing them for careers as the technically grounded senior managers of their enterprises. You know, we are, as Tom Magnanti, our founding director, talked about, is a program for those that want to lead engineering rather than leave engineering. If we think about what the concept of systems thinking is, I know it's a fairly common term in today's world, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page, is it's a process and a way of thinking and learning that looks at connections and relationships. It looks at interplays between different components, and then examines that dynamic feedback loop, those properties that are emerging out of those connections that are there. That idea of hierarchy, self-organization. It's, you know, the diagram here may look complicated. It may be, you know, just a visual, but it's this idea that everything is connected. And so starting to understand how those connections affect how a property, how a product operates is really critical to making sure you're designing the right things. So if we look at what are those options, and I know there've been a couple of questions bubbling up in the chat option, is that we have two programs actually, and we're going to speak mostly today about the master's degree program, but I do want to reference the fact that there is a certificate program as well. The master's degree program is comprised of that core class sequence that Marcel talked about that goes through system architecture, system engineering, and project management. It builds with electives that are taken out of the management school and the engineering school. There are some constraints on those electives, but they're very broadly open for you to pick based on your background and your needs. So we have people sitting in the classroom that have computer science background. We have people that are mechanical engineers, petroleum engineers, and obviously those same courses may not work effectively for everybody. And so you can take a deep dive on the technical side into the area that you have your background and familiarity with to be able to build it. And then that thesis brings together the content of the things that you've been learning. The certificate program is a significant commitment. So the certificate program is what's called a graduate certificate. It means you are taking that same core class with the master's degree students at the same time, in the same classroom, on the same teams. And so it is regular MIT graduate credit, and it's what's considered to be a 36 unit load, different from what you may have had at a different type of university, but it's a heavy load class that goes through the year. And then if you're taking the certificate, it's capped off by a capstone project that allows you to take a problem you've got in your own workplace and apply what you've learned with the guidance of faculty and teaching teams. If we look at where do we sit at MIT, and this is a nice little background picture of the MIT campus, and you are a student of MIT. You're not restricted just to the engineering school. You're not restricted just to the management school, but you can tap into the benefits that are available in all of these places. And so within the Sloan School of Management, there are action learning labs, there are clubs, there are leadership opportunities through things like the Senate. You have access to those. You can attend research, participate in research. You can attend conferences. You're a student of Sloan. You're also a student of the School of Engineering, and it means that you can access and pick and choose courses out of the different departments in the School of Engineering. A lot of our students choose to pursue research on the engineering side, and there's a lot of opportunities for research within labs. There's opportunities to participating in teaching assistant type of opportunities. But basically, the School of Engineering is also open for you. And then beyond the classroom, there is an ecosystem here on campus of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. There are 100K competitions. There's something called the Sandbox that has funds available for people looking to start new jobs, or sorry, new companies, new opportunities, innovate. And that's all open to you. And then we work very closely to bring in industry. We recognize that the vast majority of our students are not going to move on towards a doctorate degree, but they're going to go back into industry. And so we bring in real world projects. Marcel talked a little bit about companies coming in and pitching projects. And we try and give you the framework to be able to use what you've learned in real world situations so that you've got that skill set to bring back into industry. What do our students look like? And I know, again, there have been a couple of questions about what are the backgrounds required to be in the program. It is a mid-career, and I'll say early to mid-career, but we require students to have a minimum of 5 years experience if they have a bachelor's degree, a minimum of 3 years experience if they hold a master's degree or a PhD. But on average, students come in with roughly 10 years of professional experience. They come in from every industry, and that's intentional for us. There's a lot of learning that happens in the classroom, but there's probably more learning that happens between students outside of the classroom in working on projects and working on problem sets in terms of building networks. A little bit less than half of our students are sponsored by their company, either fully or partly sponsored by their company. The other half are not. About a third are local commuters, so they live somewhere in the Boston area and they commute to campus rather than relocating to be here at MIT. About half are US citizens. We try very hard, and I'll show you in the next slide, that we look to bring people in from around the globe. And you get a sense here, obviously, with about half the class being from the US. You see the US is highly represented here. But we do have students that come from Europe, from Africa, from South America, and a good number of our students come from Asia as well. Most years we get Australia. This year we didn't have anybody from Australia in the cohort, but typically we have really good geographic diversity here. we get questions about people saying, you know, I have a bachelor's degree, is this the right place to come in? Or I have an advanced degree, does it still make sense? And in most of our classes, we have about half that come in that hold a bachelor's degree. Most hold a bachelor's degree in engineering, but we do have people that have them in sciences or in math or in an analytics space. You have to be able to have enough coursework to be able to handle those engineering requirements when you come to MIT. And so we do look to make sure that that fundamental background is there, but there isn't any specific, you have to have this degree or you can't have this degree. You just have to have enough background to be able to handle the engineering coursework here. I talked about people coming in from different industries, and this was out of the class that we just brought in about a month ago now. And some of these overlap, and it's hard to tell a little bit whether consumer electronics might also meld into some of the robotics or some of the other places. But you get a sense both between our certificate and our master's students that we really do have people that represent most industries as part of the cohort. They come in from all areas, different roles. A lot of times they've been in a technical career and they're looking to expand beyond that. But we do get people that come in from a lot of different backgrounds. And that's part of what we consider when we look at admissions, is making sure that we build a robust set of background, because you can learn from others. An example that I give is I come out of a medical device background, and it surprised me when I understood how much overlap there was with finance. And a lot of that comes down to protection of data. And so on the medical device space, here in the US, there's HIPAA controls, which make patient data has to be absolutely protected. And that's not that different from financial services, where your financial and banking information has to be under significant constraints. And so there's learning that happens even across industries. Let's talk a little bit about what's expected out of you. And so there is the core class. This core class runs what we'll call the full year. And so it's fall semester. MIT has a January term. We call it IAP, or Independent Activities Period. And the core class continues in January, and then it runs in the spring semester. It's 15 units per semester, and the equivalent in January, although January is a short month. Just to give you a flavor for what does a unit look like, because if you've come out of a traditional US school, you're used to classes being either 3 credits or 4 credits, and this doesn't reflect either of those. A unit is supposed to reflect how many hours a week you spend on that class. So a 15-unit class that we have in the core means that you'll roughly spend 15 hours a week between class and recitation and your homework. And so that's what you've got to think about. I would say that MIT often underestimates by a little bit how many hours it'll take. And so 15 units might actually be a little closer to 17 or 18. But if you're thinking about doing this while you continue to work, you just have to give some assessment as to whether that's a time commitment that you can balance with your work commitments. So our goal in that core is this idea of a broad and deep systems education. And Marcel talked about it a little bit, where you get introduced to concepts in the fall and they seem pretty simple, and then it comes back again. And so we call that a spiral approach. So we introduce, you learn about the concepts that we are developing, and then it comes back in again, and you start to get a little bit more depth so you understand how to apply. And then the goal is that by the end of the spring term, you feel comfortable with the topics, you feel comfortable leading teams on these topics. And so you've used this approach to be able to learn, build the language, and then be able to actually apply what it is that you've gained. It's in classwork, obviously, but we bring in outside experts. There's a combination of team projects, individual assignments. So it's a dynamic classroom. It's not just a static, go listen to the professor. And all of this culminates with this idea of a semester-long integrated team project. And so I'm going to have Dr. Brian Mosier, who is our lead instructor on the core. Brian's going to talk a little bit about the concept of the systems education and what we teach here. And so I'm going to let Brian do the talking.
Today, being an engineer is very exciting. We're going through an energy transition. We have new computation, new classes of automation and robotics. Hardware and software are back. At the same time, what's happening in medicine, precision agriculture. carbon reduction. All these transitions are happening, which means that there's so many new combinations, new opportunities that rising engineers can address. SDM is a program in the graduate schools of engineering and the Sloan School of Management at MIT. It offers both a master's degree in engineering and management, as well as a certificate in the same. Our students are at mid-career. We have students from agriculture, from energy, biotech, health, aerospace, from automotive, from governments and military in one classroom. If we looked at curriculum a century ago, each of the separate disciplines was establishing their own first laws and their own disciplinary principles. Today, the engineering problems we're working on are connected. That is, we can't separate the subsystem we're working on from the system it connects to. And that connected system lives in an ecosystem that includes other systems. So an engineering leader now not only must help coordinate and make trades amongst the engineering disciplines, but we must be capable of also interacting, having dialogue, having conversations with stakeholders, economists, regulators, lawyers, sociologists, ethnographers. So that becomes a central part of what an engineering leader for complex systems problems must deal with. But let's start with the core, because the core is really unique. We teach this class over 9 months. With every few weeks, we spiral through system architecture, system engineering, and project management. These are 3 capabilities that an engineering leader, especially for complex modern projects, has to have. Students are involved in hundreds of hours of activity, including 300 hours of team-based projects. We invite outside organizations, both companies and governments, to propose a problem. Students begin by simply trying to frame the problem. They then take that and understand it and decompose that system and understand how it might perform and function with different options and different approaches. And then they also think about what it means to then take this proposed system into the real world. The significant peer learning. Then there's also now a new vocabulary, a new way of seeing the world as systems, and a whole toolkit of methods that people learn. After the core, there are foundation classes tied to systems, both in engineering and in management. It's also now important, heading towards a thesis, to explore. While at MIT, it's such an amazing place. It's like being a kid in a candy store. There's so many interesting classes, interesting activities. And so the electives give one a chance to shape one's own degree. And thesis is an important ultimate expression of the journey they've been on as a student, advised by a faculty member or a professional researcher. And typically it's a one-on-one dialogue over at least 6 months. What's always amazing to me is to see how a student evolves leading up to the topic in their thesis, which could be groundbreaking, maybe something they could never have anticipated when they entered. And an important part of the experience in being here at MIT is permitting that discovery, being open-minded, being diligent, interacting a ton, then allowing for the discovery and the shaping, whether it's a new technique, a new method, a new company that might emerge from the time here.
So Brian talked about this a little bit. I just wanted to put into a single picture, what are the requirements of the degree? And so there's that 36 unit core that we've talked about. There are these engineering courses and management courses. And what's required is that you take a engineering depth class, and it's typically just a single unit. It's 12 units that are required of engineering depth. And the depth classes, there's about 15 to choose from. So we aren't going to dictate which one you pick. You can pick one that fits within your technical background or area. But the goal of that class is to take a concept that was introduced in the core and to dig deeper into it. So it may be a class on system safety. And there's a faculty member that teaches a more in detail system safety course. It may be on risk and decision analysis, and there's a depth class that goes into that in more detail. And so we ask you to choose one out of this list. Similarly, on the management side, it's the same concept, a little bit different. Most of our students don't come in with formal management training. And so we ask them to take what we call a foundation class, which is something that is typically taught as part of the MBA core. So to get you some of the basic coursework that MBAs get. Management classes carry a lighter unit load, and so it's typically 2 management classes that make up the foundation. And then your remaining units, which will be 15 on the engineering and 15 on the management, can be taken from anywhere within the engineering catalog and anywhere within the management catalog. Almost without exception, and there's really only a handful of exceptions, almost every graduate class in the engineering school and in the management school are open to you. And it ends up being a little bit of an overwhelming process to be able to try and figure out which classes are the ones that are the right fit for you, because there's so much to choose from. Lastly, as Brian talked about, there's this integrative unifying master's thesis. It's a 24 unit, so it's the equivalent, most students stretch it over multiple semesters, but it's the equivalent of 24 hours in a single semester taken throughout the process of your degree program. I talked this through. This just gives it a little bit of a different perspective, and it's this idea of 12 and 15 between the foundation and the electives, 12 and 15 between the depth and electives. And then the only other caveat is that because it is a degree that is granted jointly between the schools of engineering and management, there is a requirement that your engineering and management credits have to balance within a class, and that ends up being 12 units by the time you graduate. So you can't be out of balance between the number of units on one side or the other by more than 12 units. We talk about the fact that we're career compatible. I do want to make sure that I'm absolutely clear up front is that MIT requires every student that comes to MIT. They don't have a fully distance option. Every student must spend a minimum of 1 semester on campus. But that being said, we see some variety in terms of how students go about approaching it. About half to 2/3 of our students are on campus full-time. They run through the program in 1 year to 2 years of full-time on campus. We have students, Kendall Square in Cambridge, which is where we're located, is a hub of a lot of technology. And we have students that are at Google and they're at Takeda and they're at a whole number of companies right there in Kendall Square that will come to class and come to campus for their classes. And it may take them 24 to 36 months because they're taking 1 to 2 classes at a time while they're working. Because they live here and they go to class in person, a commuter is considered a resident student. And so they don't need to dedicate a full semester to be specifically on campus because they're on campus for every class they take. And then the last group is our distance students. And our distance students oftentimes will take the first year with the core, which is offered fully in a hybrid mode. They'll do that at a distance. We do require students in our core to come to campus 3 times during the year. 1 week in August for orientation, 1 week in January for intensive seminars, and then 3 days in May to come in for final project presentations. And so if you are a distance student that first year, you still will need to make those 3, we call them business trips back to campus, but they're only a week or less in duration on those 3 times you come. And then a distance student will often spend a semester on campus during their second year. Some will often, and you heard it from Marcel, she started at a distance and she made the decision to come to campus because of so many things that are available, but it can be done with a single semester during the second year. Certificate program also sees distance student as well as synchronous online. Our certificate students are typically not full-time on campus, and we do not offer, as a certificate student, you're not full-time. And so if you're international, we do not sponsor student visas for the certificate program at a distance. You saw a little bit in the videos, and here's another picture of what our distance classroom looks like. It is synchronous, and so students are expected to be in class when class is happening, even if they're at a distance. And that's because a lot of what happens in the class is interactive. And so it's not possible simply to log on and run a video at 1 1/4 speed to get the class. It's really designed for you to be in class and participating. We run it over the lunch block on the East Coast. It oftentimes works really well for the West Coast because it's before work starts. We do have folks in Europe that take it after the typical workday ends, and so that time frame typically works well. Classes are supported by an online web-based portal, and so if you are at a distance and you have that rare occasion where you have to miss a class because there's an important meeting, all classes are recorded, they're captured, and they're available for you to review afterwards. All Sloan classes and most engineering classes are going to have to be done during your semester on campus. There's a handful of classes that are available hybrid and can be done remote, but the majority of your classes that are going to be on your plan are going to have to be done while you're here on campus. It's always important to look at what does this mean to me? If I'm going to invest the time, if I'm going to invest the money, what comes out of this? I will acknowledge the fact that the numbers are pretty small. We look at students that are self-sponsored, ones that go to a new job rather than somebody who comes sponsored by their company. But these numbers have been consistent over the past number of years. An average of a 66% increase in salary. Our students that graduated last year came out with roughly a $167,000 starting salary, mixed across the US. You'll note that it's 2022, and you might be looking and saying, Joan, it's 2024. Why in the world don't we have updated data? And it's because we do give students, we measure the data 6 months after graduation. So those that ended at the end of last year, their 6 months just ended over the summer, and we're collecting that data. We should have the updated 2023 numbers very soon. So we'll have that up on the website shortly. This just gives you a snapshot. Actually, my years are wrong. This goes through 2022. Just some of the companies that are hiring. The ones that are in bold are ones that have hired multiple individuals, and we see them shift over time as far as the companies that are hot and students want to be working for are ones that we see come over time. This is a sampling. It was not crafted in any way to try and give you just the best job titles, but it's a sampling of the titles of students in their next job after graduation. If you dig into our website, you'll get a little bit more information on career pathways and next steps. And I encourage you, if you're trying to figure out if this is the right step for you at this point in your career, do a little bit of a digging on the website. It'll give you some better sense about where our students go and the types of jobs that they pursue. We recognize, as I mentioned before, that students come out of SDM and they tend to go back to industry. So it's been very important for us to collaborate with industry. And it happens in a number of ways. Companies sponsor students, internships happen. The core course, the team project that we bring in companies to pitch projects, those are all real world problems that are coming in. We do a number of what we call tech treks. It's written as site visits here, but we call them tech treks. And so we do more formal 1-week treks to the Bay Area. We go to Japan in January. And last year, and I think we'll be continuing it for a while at least, we've done Europe. And so it's a chance for students that may have spent their time in a single vertical for their career to see a little bit about how other companies operate, how they look at problems, what are their missions. And it's oftentimes eye-opening to see how companies outside of somebody's base area really look at tackling problems. We bring in industry to present guest lectures so they can talk about real world problems and solutions. And industry also sponsors research. And so we have systems-based research projects. Brian has been very active in bringing in research over the past number of years. And so there's opportunities to engage as a research assistant or get involved in some of those research projects that are coming in from industry. So with that, I'm open for questions, but I know that probably what's more critical for all of you is to hear from students that are in this program. And so we've invited a number of our students to join us. And what I'd love to have them do is give a little bit of their background, talk about where they came from, what their type of job was, and why they came to SDM. And Amal, I've got my slide screen up. Do you mind introducing our guest panelists?
Sure. Sorry, my pictures are very long. If you can hear me,
Well, Mikal is here. I can see Mikal.
volunteer.
And so,
Okay.
Miguel, if you can give a quick introduction to start, and then we'll bring the others on as well.
Yes, sure. Thank you, John. So hello, Michał Belkowski. So originally I come from Poland. So I am international student. I applied for SDM when I was in Europe. So I was living across different countries in Europe from my professional background. I started in a high-tech industry in automotive and also had a few startup company business. And then I spent more than a decade in aerospace. So I work as an Airbus as a chief engineer. What could be interesting for you, and you had some questions, is that I started SDM as a remote student. So the first year I was doing it fully as a remote, and then I am now on the second year I came full-time on campus. So that's my background.
Thank you, Mikhail. Angela, I see you there too. Do you mind giving a quick introduction?
Of course. So hi everyone, my name is Angela New. I work in the biotech industry and I'm still working while doing the master degree. I decided to apply to this program because I thought it was a really good fit for me because I'm very interested in systems and also just more for personal and professional reasons. I want to understand what the heck is going on with the world with all the technology converging and everything. So I want to expand my horizon and see how this, find a path for that would be like both promote me personally and professionally on the growth side.
Thank you. And then Amal, do we have a third person on as well?
Yes. Vivek, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hey, I'm Vivek. I'm a second year SDM student. So I have a background in bachelor's in electrical engineering and worked in the software industry, both in kind of satellite image processing, robotics, and kind of cloud computing. And I actually came across the SDM program back in 2019 as I was changing jobs and really considering applying, and I eventually decided to come on over. And yeah, my reason for joining the SDM program was I worked with systems engineers and I saw that there was the power of kind of thinking as at a systematic view and, or in a systems view, and then kind of thinking high level of everything from a holistic perspective. And I decided after a couple of instances in my jobs where I saw, this would be very powerful techniques to hone in on, I decided to come over.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for questions. I know people are often a little bit shy to jump in on questions. And so if we don't, I'll start to feed some in, but please feel free to raise your hand. If nobody's speaking, feel free to just unmute and ask the questions. And like I said, if we don't get, please.
If I may, so there is a lot of chatter about the hybrid options and the ability of people to follow the program remotely. So if anybody can comment on that.
Mikhail, it may be useful for you to talk about your experience.
Yeah,
Position student.
I wanted to jump in because I was doing it full time, like being remote first year. So it is manageable. Of course, to arrange also with your duties. I was working full time and I was actually very much involved in my project and I did it. So basically, as John introduced to you, whenever you are doing the SDM core subject, depending on the time where you are, these are usually taking place during the lunch time here Easter time, so you can arrange your duties. There is a limited number of subject you can take when you are a remote student, and yeah, so and you have to bear in mind the requirements which program is giving you. But overall, the core is a good experience. I think you have also a lot of people, colleagues around the world which are joining, and you work in a team during first year a lot, and it's very, very interactive. So I did first year not only taking the SDM core, but I also took few other classes which are offered. And then after 1 year, I decided to come here full time. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I can also speak on the hybrid style because I am a local commuter. However, my work doesn't really allow me to be fully on campus. So what I ended up doing was to take the core class remotely and take the other classes on campus. This required some negotiation with my employer, but it ultimately worked. But I would have to warn you that it's not easy for sure. I always find myself crowding toward the end of the semester.
Yeah, I want to reiterate the fact that MIT is primarily in person. And there's a lot of reason for that. I think that from a lifestyle perspective, it'd be nice if it was offered completely at a distance, but there is so much on campus that's happening. There are so many opportunities to engage with faculty, with thought leaders, with outside visitors, to get involved in competitions, that MIT believes that part of the experience of being an MIT student is being part of the ecosystem that's here and engaging in that research and engaging in those labs and engaging in those projects. And so it's a tension between this idea of I've got a family and I need to balance with the university's requirement that you spend a little bit of time here and really get a chance to experience what is life here at MIT.
And I think one to add, especially when you think to take it and fully time working, you need to be also transparent with your employer and discuss it. So you have this flexibility, and I believe it is manageable in current world, and you can complete your work, but be mindful where you have also your commitments towards the school. Yeah.
I see a hand raised here from Nadine. If I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, but go ahead.
Joanne, you did that right. That my name is Nitin. Thank you. I'm based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, not far away from you. So, Angela, I have a follow-up question for you. So you mentioned you were a commuter. So on an average, how much hours on an average do you spend commuting to the university in a month?
So last year I was actually living relatively close to campus, even though it was still required some commuting, as just the traffic is really bad in the city all the time. I would say I typically spend about 40 minutes to an hour, like per day, if I have to go on campus.
Oh, what I meant is like, how much hours do you have to be at school?
Oh, okay. I see. So it really depends on how many classes you take. So typical classes are 3 hours per week. Sometimes they're split into 2 days. Sometimes they're just one single session. And for core, I took it online. So it was 2 hours per day for 2 days per week. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Appreciate your answer.
Yeah, no problem.
I know there's some questions here about funding, and Mikhail, I'm going to look to you in kind of specifically because I know that you are a teaching assistant this year for the core. Can you talk a little bit about how, what was the process of becoming a teaching assistant? How hard or easy is it to find that type of funding? We always get questions about, can I get it my first semester on campus? And I have my answer, but I'd love to have you all kind of provide your take on that.
Yeah, I can elaborate on this because I was especially discussing a lot about the TA or array as well, and I am currently a teaching assistant, and I was starting as a self-sponsored student. I would say it is very difficult to get or to have some position of TA and array just at the beginning, like you are coming to MIT. But however, it's usually much more easier, especially for SDMers, like after first year or maybe half a year, where you have a direct contact with professors. They also see what are your capabilities, I would say, or some interest. If you share some interests, then it becomes much more easier. But just to have it or arrange it now, I would say it's very unusual and very difficult.
Vivek, I don't remember. Do you have an RA or TA or not?
For this upcoming fall, I do have a RA, half-time RA. In my first year, I did not have any RA or TA. I was kind of committed to just being a full-time student. So I started actually working remotely from Seattle, just doing the core. And then in my second term is when I came here to MIT, and I decided not to pursue an RA or a TA simply because I knew I would be overwhelmed like a kid in a candy store at MIT. So kind of wanted to just enjoy being a student for a full-time semester. But starting this fall, I will have an RA.
So I want to just do a quick follow-up on that because we always do get a lot of questions on this. As Mikhail said, it's hard to get one before you come to campus. Faculty like to know the students they're going to work with, either in their research lab or as a teaching assistant. They want to make sure that it's somebody that quite frankly is going to manage the way they would want them to manage. And once you build the relationships on campus, there's no guarantee, but most of our students that are looking for funding through a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship are able to find them on campus. And they typically will cover your tuition as well as a living stipend. It varies because it's basically whatever that research grant is that the faculty has, or it's however their teaching assistantship is structured. But in most cases, it will cover your tuition and it will cover your just a living expense payment as well. I want to do actually, Drew, go ahead and jump in.
Apologies, but I had a question. It's a follow-up from something discussed on the chat. So I understand that SDM combines the 3 pillars of system, design, and management. So my question was that in today's session, I understood well the 2 pillars of how MIT manages tech and management, but I wanted to ask about the design pillar. And is it more married with the first 2 pillars in the form of system design thinking or marketing and design, or is that why like it's not like emphasized on?
Joan, I can handle that.
Please go ahead, Brian, jump in. Do you want to
Hi.
go?
Hey,
Well, they match
Drew.
sort of.
Great question. Design is inherent. So when we, it's system thinking is one lens of seeing the world, design is another. And, I think because of our attitude at MIT that our exploration is really about causing change in the world, that requires intervention, which requires design. So we talk often about designing the organization, designing the project, designing the system itself. So the other thing is that at MIT, particularly with the elective suite, there's all kinds of both product design and other kinds of design classes that are available to you. So it's so inherent that I wouldn't even call it out maybe.
Thanks, Brian. Gargi, please feel free to jump in.
Thank you. So I'm 20 years experience in industry, and I read a lot about the industry experience. I'm director of engineering already. I never went to school here in the United States, and MIT is a dream school. But I kind of want to understand if you do get students who are, my experience level, like, 20 years, almost veteran in the industry, kind of wanting to understand that if they're like very few, rare, how does that work?
It's a bell curve. We have people that just barely meet the minimum requirements that we have. And we have people that are in their late 40s or even early 50s. I think what's critical for us as we assess candidates is why does it make sense for you at this stage in your career? And so we just look as part of your essays and as part of your application to understand either early career, late career, wherever you are, why is SDM the right fit for you? And so use the essay portion as your chance to explain how this fits, and it fits at this stage in your life. But when you talk about whether it's a lot or a few or rare, I would say it's a few. It's somewhere in between. It's definitely not the majority of our students, but it's not rare either. Usually in every cohort, there's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 that are on the older side of their career. And so you absolutely would not be alone.
Thank you.
Welcome. Colin, go ahead.
Hey, I'd reached out like a year or two ago about trying to do a campus visit. And I think that'd be beneficial for me because I have potentially an opportunity to maybe consider moving closer to campus. And I'm trying to like ascertain with my job whether it'd be beneficial to try to do the certificate first and then maybe roll into the graduate degree or move there. And so I have a lot of things I'm trying to toss up in the air. And I was thinking that if I went on campus and saw it and like I'd have a better idea of like the route that I want to take. So
Yeah, we had a funky thing called COVID happen.
Yeah.
It really screwed up our campus visits and bringing people on. We are happy to connect you with a student and set up to be able to have you do a campus visit. We don't do them on a, mass group scale. We do them on a one-on-one. But one of the individuals here and Amal, if you don't mind doing a quick introduction, Amal is our admissions coordinator. And Amal is the person that will help work with you to match you up with a student to be able to come visit on campus.
Okay.
I'm Amal, so if you are interested in visiting campus, just shoot me an email. I have my email address on the chat. I will go ahead and find a current student that would fit your background. So if you can tell me what your background is in the email and your flexibility. Usually I send visitors to the core just because we own the core and most faculty are okay with a stranger in that class.
Yeah.
Once you meet with the student, then you can chat with them for the day. So if they have other classes, they can take you with them.
Okay.
So
Is there a better time of the year to do that?
I usually don't send visitors the first couple of weeks of class just because there's still changes happening. And with the first year, I know it's overwhelming that first couple of weeks. They're still trying to figure out. So usually after 2 weeks, I can start scheduling visits.
Okay. Thank you.
Of any term, as long as we give them a couple of weeks to settle in.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to look out to, first off, I want to do a really quick introduction because there's been people who are helping and they're answering questions for you. And I would love to have them give a quick introduction and then we'll jump to questions again. But Ignacio, do you mind doing a really quick introduction just so they've got an idea of who this person is behind the responses?
We have some of the responses, so by no stretch, this is a collective intelligence effort. So hello everybody. I am pretty sure that a few of you are midnight or the wee hours of the morning. So hello, thank you for being here. My name is Ignacio Vasquez. I am the Industry Relations Director for SDM. I also happen to be an alum. I graduated the program a couple of years ago, and I am not going to say that they begged me to stay, but it's maybe that, like there was like no better alternative or anything. I'm very happy to be here. I actually came to SEM after about 10 years working in industry. I used to be a consultant. I am originally from Mexico, did my undergrad over there, but I actually lived in the Netherlands for about 8 years. So I am the person responsible for that week-long visit to Europe that we do now, hopefully for the second year. I am going to look virtually at Joan now because I have no idea what the question was anymore.
No, I just wanted to have you give a little bit of an introduction so people had an idea of who these people were that were answering questions.
Sure
and
thing.
Then Julie, I'm going to let you do a really quick intro as well because you've been the other one working the Q&A board. Unless we lost Julie to another meeting.
No, you didn't. I am deep in replies here. So hi, everybody. My name is Julie Papp. I am the Career Development Manager for the SDM program. And what that means is that I work with the master's students, those students who are making any type of a career transition. So I've had the good fortune of working with the SDMers for the last 3 years. And prior to that, I spent 16 years at the Sloan School working with MBA students. So yes, that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Julie. I'm going to jump back over to the hands that are raised and thank you for your patience. Again, apologies if I don't get the name right. Bitan or Bitan?
Yes, thank you. First of all, a very nice presentation. So I have a quick question. So I have already finished my master's, and in my master's, when I was doing my master thesis, it was that I had the opportunity to do my thesis already in an industry. But as I have understood that the course program that you have designed, that you have a capstone project, which is basically that you work together with the industry. But are you still flexible that when somebody is coming on campus and doing the master thesis over there, can directly this be done at an industry or in collaboration with them? Or is it only that you are given a specific research topic within the university and then you are doing it only within the university campus?
Great question. It is required that you work with a faculty member here at MIT, but the topics are your choice. It's not given to you. And it ranges everything from something that may be a pure research topic. Some students may choose that. Others do choose to pursue something that's industry related. And so it's really up to you in concert with your advisor to agree on the topic and agree on that plan for it. It's the thesis. We have a lot of support built in for you to help make the thesis journey something that's going to be very beneficial, but it's your journey. And so there's no requirements that it be industry or not be industry. It's really whatever makes sense for you. And then we'll help you in that process of finding an advisor and refining that topic.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank
Freddie,
you.
thank you for your patience. Go ahead and jump on.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. It's been very informative. Thank you very much for that. I would like to ask if a direct question, if this program will fit for me. I've done my career between R&D positions and operations consultant, designing processes, also designing working systems and management tools. So I would like to know if this is the correct program for leveling up my skills, but continuing in the operations consultancy career, but now in a directive position.
So I'll actually throw that first over to Mikhail and Angela and Vivek, if you've got any input as far as, the type of backgrounds that make sense for this, and then happy to jump in if we need more input.
So
I can probably speak to this because I come from biotech, and there's not a lot of biotech classmates in the cohort because it's more of an emerging industry, which kind of gained popularity in recent years. So initially I had the same doubt, but as the class went on and I learned more and more, I realized it's really generally applicable to all kinds of studies, including biotech. You really learn how to structure your thoughts, how to systematically assess problems and challenges and provide innovative solutions. So it's been very helpful for my field as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think I can add to it because we have now some folks that like from the Boston Consulting, and they see it very valuable. So it's broaden the approach, how they use it in their job. Is when you learn here at the SDM, you have your core where you learn about the similar language, you use about the system behavior, how to apply it in your work, and then whatever is around. The beauty of this is that you can arrange everything. So all the other additional subject. If you want to put something additional for your curriculum, like in terms of the management, consulting, or some specific technical, that is what you add to your class, because you have your core, but all other classes you can explore around the MIT, and you can also go to any professor who is working on the subject, which would be very beneficial for your job. You can work with him. You might find a thesis which would be very suitable for you and will also benefit your professional career. So
thank you, Mikhail. Tomas, please feel free to jump on.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, hi. So I got a question, and this is related to the certificate.
Mhm.
So if I start my certificate, right, and then I complete the whole certificate, and I say, you know what, I want to keep going for the master's. Can I do that,
Yes.
or how does that works?
Can I?
Please.
Hi, Thomas. Is it Thomas? Thomas. Anyway.
Either one, you know, so Tomas, Thomas.
Perfect. Okay, so Thomas. So yes, it is possible. Certificate students need to be admitted into the master's program, but if they are admitted, then the majority of their credits can be transferred towards the master's. The only portion of the certificate that cannot be transferred is the capstone project, and that's a technicality because the institute only allows graded courses to be counted towards a degree. The capstone project is a pass-fail class, so that one wouldn't count. But the rest of the units can be transferred to the masters. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I want to recognize the fact that we have hit 1 o'clock. I'm happy to stay and to continue to answer questions. I know that our students may have to jump off for classes, and in which case, thank you very much, Mikhail, Angelo, and Vivek for joining us. It's always helpful to hear your background. If you're able to stay for a few minutes more, great, but if not, absolutely understand. I do want to jump on. Angela, if you have a minute to stay longer, I know there was a question specifically for you that came in the chat that said, you know, how do you, while you're working, how do you balance? How many classes are you actually taking? How many units do you have to try and balance while you're working? I don't know if you can jump on with that for a minute.
Angela had to leave for.
I knew that we were close. Oh, she answered online as well.
Yeah, she did.
I'm so far behind because I'm trying to manage two things.
I can speak a little bit to that as well, because I
Great.
started remote, working full time at Amazon, which is pretty demanding, and the core, which is pretty demanding. I think everybody's ability is different, and you know, it really depends on if you have a job that's flexible that allows you maybe to take meetings in the middle of the day, but family. You know, if you have kids, if you have a wife or a spouse, like how much time that takes. I think everybody's ability is different. I think for me, taking core and a full-time job was probably more than I could handle, but I knew, you know, Mikhail was taking full-time job and taking 36 credits. He, at the end of it, he said, I'm not sure I would recommend it, but it's survivable, right? I think it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, what your time frame is, if finance is a consideration. So I think it really depends. I think a full-time job in core is quite manageable. And beyond that, it really is per person. If you're in campus, I think it's a little bit easier. You might be able to team up with people that are local. In core, you do have that added constraint of you might be working with people across the globe, so you'll have to figure out your kind of schedule around that. And one thing that I think was successful for a lot of people is that if you are starting remote, you try to balance core with some managerial classes. The engineering classes will be much, much heavier than the management classes. So you can knock out some of those management electives that you need if you're local. If you're not local, then you do have to take some of the hybrid options that are available. But yeah, everybody is different and everybody's done everything. So it's possible, but it is a challenge, that's for sure.
Thanks, Vivek. Any other questions? Feel free to jump on if you've got questions, and if not, we'll wrap up, and I would say, please reach out. You know, Amal is here. The rest of us are here to help support. Our goal is to help make sure, as I said when we started, that you find the program that's right for you. And so if SDM is the right program, we would love to have applications, but it may be that you find that a different direction is right, and I'd rather you sort that out before you jump in with too much. All right, Amal, are we good to wrap it up? Oh, Tomas, please jump on again.
Oh, I'm sorry. So one more question. So
Yeah, please.
So I work for Chevron.
Mhm.
Yeah, no Chevron, we got like a direct program or some kind of deal.
Yes.
Who is the person can I contact directly? So to meet this Chevron program for the certificate or all this stuff? How do I get more information? Who's the right person that I need to contact from you guys?
Ignacio would be the right contact. And Ignacio, did you put your email on already, or do you mind putting that on?
I was a little bit careful about that one, but here we go. It's my email is in the chat, Thomas.
Okay, perfect. I will send you an email.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to say thank you very much to our students. They've got a lot going on. The semester just started, and so thank you so much for joining us. And thank you as well to our staff for helping answer the questions while I chat in the background. If you've got further questions, please let us know. We would love to hear from you, and hopefully you'll consider SDM as your.
Can you take one more question?
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to know, is there a decision time? When's the decision for application if you apply? Is there a rolling admission, or is there a date set when all decisions are mailed?
So there's two different deadlines. One of the deadlines is end of December to get the materials in, and then we will notify you by the first week in March. The second deadline, Amal? That's the one that's in our head.
It's February 28th, and the decision on that is May 6th.
Okay, thank you very
But
much.
there is a communication between the deadline and final decision. So if your application makes it to the interview phase, you obviously will hear from me. Or if there's a decline decision, you'll also hear before the May or March.
So the declines can come as early as when?
So it would be
February.
I'm looking at my sheet. So I'm cheating a little bit here. So it would be sometime in February. So like for the first deadline, which is December 13th, and then you recommenders have to the 20th. We start reading right away. We meet sometime in February, and that's when either someone is declined or I request an interview.
Okay.
Okay,
I
and
just
if
wanted to
there-
know. 'Cause
Yeah, if you need
I'm
early
multiply-
decision, if you have deadlines because of a scholarship, employee who's gonna sponsor you, whatever the case is, please communicate that with me so I know to work with you on case by case. Otherwise, the standard deadlines will apply.
Okay, because I've already done the whole app. I have other programs I'm applying to. I just need to coordinate that carefully.
Yep, I totally understand. Yep.
Just keep us informed, and we'll do everything we can to try and help make sure you've got choices there.
Thank you very much, both of you.
You're welcome. All
Thank
right.
you so much to everybody. And again, we hope to hear from you soon. Take care.